Hi, everyone. Welcome to Climate Conversations. I'm Erica.
And I'm Marco. Thanks for joining us today.
Today we are going to talk about climate change.
That's right, Erica. We'll talk about what climate change is, why it's important, and what we can do about it.
Let's start with the basics. Marco, can you tell us what climate change is?
Sure, climate change means that the world's weather is changing. The Earth is getting warmer because of things people do, like burning coal and oil.
So, the Earth is getting hotter, but how do we know this is happening?
Scientists measure the temperature of the Earth. They also look at ice in the Arctic and Antarctic. The ice is melting, which means the Earth is warming up.
That's a big problem. What causes climate change?
The main cause is something called greenhouse gases. When we burn coal, oil, and gas, we release these gases into the air. They trap heat, like a blanket, making the Earth warmer.
I see. So, burning coal, oil, and gas is bad for the planet. What else causes climate change?
Cutting down trees is also a big problem. Trees absorb carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas. Fewer trees mean more carbon dioxide in the air.
That makes sense. But how does climate change affect us?
It affects us in many ways. We get more extreme weather, like stronger storms and floods. Some places become too hot or too dry to live in. This can also cause problems with food and water.
That's scary. What can we do to help stop climate change?
There are many things we can do. We can use less energy, drive less, and recycle more. We can also use renewable energy, like solar and wind power.
Great tips, Marco. Now, let's talk about some of these solutions in detail. For example, what is renewable energy?
Renewable energy comes from sources that won't run out, like the sun, wind, and water. Solar panels use sunlight to make electricity. Wind turbines use the wind to make electricity. That's interesting. How can people use less energy at home?
People can turn off lights when they don't need them, use energy-efficient appliances, and take shorter showers to save hot water. What about transportation? How can we reduce our carbon footprint?
We can walk, ride a bike, or use public transport instead of driving. If you need a car, try to use an electric or hybrid car.
What other changes can we make in our daily lives?
We can eat less meat. Producing meat uses a lot of resources and creates a lot of greenhouse gases. Eating more vegetables and plant-based foods is better for the planet.
That's a good point. Now, let's talk about recycling. How does it help the environment?
Recycling helps because it reduces the need to make new things from raw materials. This saves energy and reduces pollution. For example, recycling paper saves trees and energy.
What can we recycle?
We can recycle paper, glass, plastic, and metal. It's important to clean them before recycling. Some things, like batteries and electronics, need special recycling programs.
Thanks, Marco. It's important to remember that every little bit helps. Now, let's talk about what governments and businesses can do to fight climate change.
Governments can create laws to limit greenhouse gases. They can also support renewable energy projects and protect forests.
What about business?
Businesses can reduce their carbon footprint by using renewable energy, making products that last longer, and recycling materials. They can also support climate-friendly policies.
That's good to know. Now, let's answer some questions from our listeners. The first question is from Anna in Brazil. She asks, how does climate change affect animals?
Great question, Anna. Climate change affects animals in many ways. It can destroy their habitats, like ice melting in the Arctic for polar bears. It can also change the seasons, which affects food availability.
Thanks, Marco. Our next question is from Tom in Australia. He asks, what is the Paris Agreement?
The Paris Agreement is a global deal to fight climate change. Countries agreed to limit global warming to below 2 degrees Celsius and tried to keep it below 1.5 degrees. They also agreed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
That's an important agreement. Our last question is from MEI in China. She asks, what can kids do to help with climate change?
Kids can do a lot. They can learn about climate change and tell others. They can recycle, save energy, and use less plastic. They can also join or start environmental clubs at school.
Those are great ideas. Thanks, Marco. We've talked about a lot today. Before we finish, do you have any final thoughts?
Yes, Erica, climate change is a big problem, but we can all help. Small changes in our daily lives can make a big difference. Let's all do our part to protect our planet.
Marco, can you tell us why climate change is happening so quickly now?
Sure, Erica, the main reason is human activities. We burn fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas for energy. This releases a lot of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the air.
Right, and these gases trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere, making it warmer. But what are fossil fuels exactly?
Fossil fuels are natural resources like coal, oil, and natural gas. They were formed from the remains of plants and animals that lived millions of years ago. When we burn them, they release energy.
So, we use this energy for things like electricity, heating, and transportation. But it's causing big problems for our planet. Let's talk about the impact on the oceans.
Good idea. The oceans absorb a lot of the carbon dioxide we release. This makes the water more acidic, which is bad for marine life like fish and coral reefs.
I heard that warmer oceans also cause stronger hurricanes and typhoons. Is that true?
Yes, it is. Warmer water means more energy for storms. This can make hurricanes and typhoons stronger and more destructive.
That's really scary. Another big issue is the melting of ice in the Arctic and Antarctic. What happens when this ice melts?
When ice melts, it causes sea levels to rise. This can lead to flooding in coastal areas. Many people live near the coast, so it's a big problem.
Rising sea levels can also destroy habitats for animals. For example, polar bears need ice to hunt seals. If the ice melts, they can't find food.
Exactly. And it's not just polar bears. Many animals are losing their homes because of climate change. For example, some birds can't find the right conditions to nest.
It's so sad, but there are things we can do to help. Let's talk about some solutions. What is renewable energy and how can it help?
Renewable energy comes from sources that won't run out, like the sun, wind, and water. Solar panels and wind turbines can produce electricity without releasing greenhouse gases.
Using renewable energy is a great way to reduce our carbon footprint. What are some other ways we can save energy at home?
There are many simple things we can do. For example, turn off lights when you leave a room, use energy-efficient appliances, and unplug electronics when you're not using them.
Those are good tips. What about transportation? How can we reduce emissions from cars and trucks?
We can use public transportation, carpool, ride bikes, or walk instead of driving. If you need a car, electric or hybrid cars are better for the environment.
And what about flying? Airplanes produce a lot of greenhouse gases.
That's true. We can try to fly less often. If we have to fly, we can choose airlines that are working to reduce their emissions.
Those are all great ideas. Now, let's talk about something called the circular economy. What is that?
The circular economy is a way of thinking about how we use resources. Instead of throwing things away, we try to reuse, repair, and recycle them. This reduces waste and saves resources.
Can you give us some examples of how we can practice the circular economy in our daily lives?
Sure. For example, we can buy second-hand clothes and furniture. We can also repair things instead of throwing them away. And, of course, We can recycle as much as possible.
I like that idea. It helps the environment and can save money too. Now, let's talk about sustainable food. How does what we eat affect the climate?
Producing food uses a lot of resources like water and land. Some foods, like meat, have a bigger impact on the environment. Eating more plant-based foods can reduce our carbon footprint.
So, eating less meat and more vegetables is good for the planet. What about food waste?
Food waste is a big problem. When we throw away food, we also waste all the resources used to produce it. We can help by planning our meals, buying only what we need, and using leftovers.
Well said, Marco. Thanks, everyone, for listening to Climate Conversations. We hope you learned something new today.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends. See you next time.
Bye.